All right, welcome back again, Bobcats. We should be able to finish up our smoked fish dip now with our wonderful homemade pita chips. Our fish dip is already made. I'm just going to show you a really simple way to make a homemade snack that doesn't cost much money, and there's lots of different ways you can change it up. Pita chips are really simple to make, and pita bread itself is actually quite reasonable. This package that I got here was about $3, and there's 6 pita in there, and these are really nice, very fresh, and very large. You can get smaller pita. They work just fine. Most of our local supermarkets carry a brand that's about $1.99 for a package. That $1.99 will make you like the equivalent of about $10 worth of store-bought pita chips. Guys, making the pita bread is the difficult part. Making the chip is easy. So I'm going to take out one of these pita and we'll get started. I'm making a very basic pita chip because we're eating it with the smoked fish dip. The smoked fish dip already has a ton of flavor of its own, so we do not want an overly seasoned pita chip. So our pita chip is just going to have salt, pepper, and olive oil on it, but you can change it up all sorts of ways. You can add different kinds of cheeses. Fresh grated Parmesan is excellent on there. You can add cheddar cheese, depending on what you're utilizing it for. If you're using it for a dip, you might want to keep it a little more plain. If you're using it just to eat the chip, well then put on there whatever you want. All kinds of seasonings, garlic powder, a little ranch powder. You can play with it. So we're going to start with a whole pita, and we're going to cut it right down the middle in half. And now what we need to do is we need to open the pita up. So we're going to work our fingers in there and just sort of separate it, because we're using both sides of the pita bread to make the chips. We'll separate both of them like that. And now I'm going to use a smaller knife, like a steak knife. I don't want to use my chef's knife. I could use my chef's knife, but it's a little bit more dangerous and there's just no reason. And we're just going to cut along the seam and separate the two sides of pita bread. And this doesn't have to be real neat. It's going to work out just fine either way. And we'll do that to both halves of the pita bread. Separate the two sides. Just like that. We'll stack them all up together. And we're actually, out of this one pita, we're going to get 16 pieces. We've cut them in half already. We're going to cut them in half again. And then cut them in half again. And we've got 16 triangles here that we're now going to lay them out onto our baking sheet, covered in parchment paper. You don't actually have to use the parchment paper, but you know that we use it a ton in the kitchen at school. It helps keep our pans clean. It helps make cleanup really easy. We just ball up the parchment paper and then we can wash the pans real easy. If you don't use the parchment paper, the oil, the salt, the pepper, all kind of burns and sticks to the pan, and it makes it a real pain for whoever's on dishes. So we're going to lay out our pita chips on the pan. We want them to be rough side up. In other words, the inside of the pita should be facing up. I'm going to lay those all out. We got plenty of space for one pita on this pan. We could probably fit a little bit more, no problem. So we can give them some space. But if you're doing a bunch, you can put them right next to each other. There's no reason to leave a ton of space between them. So we have them all laid out. We're just going to season them up really quick. We're going to start with the olive oil. We want to put the olive oil on first because we want the seasoning to stick to the olive oil. And what I'm going to do is I've got them laid out, and I'm just going to drizzle them across the whole pan. It's no big deal if I don't hit the pita, because once I've drizzled and seasoned them, then we're going to sort of flop them around and toss them around in the olive oil so that they're well coated on both sides in olive oil. Trust me, the oil is going to get all over the place. So we're just going to drizzle our olive oil across the entire pan, and the pita itself. Now we're going to sprinkle a little salt right across the top, probably about 2 pinches for the entire pan. And remember, we hold up nice and high so that we get an even distribution of salt. And now we're going to take our fresh ground pepper and we're going to grind that right over the top and just get a nice coating. We don't want a ton of pepper here. But we do want a little bit because pepper is awesome. It makes food delicious. That's why. So we've got that there. Now what we're going to do is just sort of flip the pieces of pita back and forth in the oil real quick, just so they get a little bit more even distribution of oil, a little bit more even distribution of the salt and pepper, and we know that we've got oil on the top and the bottom of all of the pita chips. Now again, this is where if you wanted to, before you toss them around, you'd add some Parmesan cheese, you could add some cheddar cheese, you could add some garlic powder, some ranch seasoning. If you want to make them spicy, you could add some cayenne powder. It's really up to you what you want, where you want to take this. Now, these are going to go into a 350-degree oven, and depending on the oven that you have, it could take anywhere from between 15 minutes to 25 minutes to totally toast these up. We want to completely dry them out. That's the key. We don't want them to be soft anymore. We don't want a chewy chip. We want a real crispy chip. So we're going to take these, we're going to put them into an oven that's already preheated at 350 degrees. And through the magic of YouTube, they should look like this when they come out. They are nicely browned. You'll notice some are a little more brown than others. The key is if they're a little extra brown, that's no big deal. We clearly don't want to burn them, but we want to ensure that all of them are nice and crispy. And you'll see that they are. They should crack just like that. They're real snappy, and they're going to be really excellent with our smoked fish dip. So, last thing we need to do now before we plate up our smoked fish dip, our celery and our pita chips, is we have to cut up our celery. No big deal. I've got 2 stalks of celery that are all washed up. I'm only going to cut off the very end of the white of the celery because it is a little tough down there. And I'm going to keep the celery whole. Otherwise, tomorrow we'll be having braised dog on the menu. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daisy, for protecting the home. We're going to cut our celery into about 2 to 3 inch hunks of celery, and we will save this for compost. Celery is great because it's already got a nice place for whatever dip that you're using to go in. So celery is a fantastic device to eat smoked fish dip with. You can eat hummus with it. You can eat cheese dips with it. You know, you can put peanut butter on it. It's healthy, it's crispy, and it's very reasonable. So we're just going to grab a bowl. We're going to load some of our gorgeous smoked fish dip right into the middle. That looks nice there. We'll put some pita chips around the side. Some celery on the other side. And there you go. We're ready to eat. See you next time. Take care.